say that because they have a mouse.
Okay, so we just, you're good. So we just got out of caucus, which means the association linked and, we went to different rooms and we just finished caucusing, so we're back together in open session.
Where's the microphone?
I don't know if this works. Okay, so what do you guys, we should start with our interests, add common interests, and put those up there, and then, do some brainstorming. So salaries and benefits is our issue. What are the interests? What are our interests behind this? So we have recruitment, trained staff, competitive with surrounding districts.
I'm just putting the two up that always come up.
Yeah. Trustee Grissom, I like what you said earlier about honestly trying to read out.
Oh, yeah, just that, I'm gonna use the word maintaining this on, but moving forward with the honesty, in other words, what we talked about last year, honoring
Yes,
the
that's,
discussions that we had last year regarding, you know, the aid money and all the other different funds.
the understanding last year, we talked about this is gonna be a 5-year thing, and we agreed to the group last year. I know it's your annual, year to year, but something she said that I thought was really valid was honoring what our intention was last year, when it was the 5-year legislation, that we were gonna stick with it, and you kinda brought that up a little bit too, Jason.
That was at least the first 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I wasn't here last year, so.
Well, yeah, and I think we agreed to the 4, and then we said the 5th, we'd come back to something like that. I can't remember what the verbiage states in the NA for sure, but
And then we'd only continue it if the state continued to fund it.
exactly.
Is that in the language?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe it is.
Well, I think we put in the language that it would be a yearly discussion.
Yeah.
With the intent of understanding that, so that way we knew, and staff knew, we would talk about it, and every single year it's something we have to agree to continue. So we didn't say per the state continuing, we said it has to be talked about yearly, knowing the state changes, then you're having that conversation each year, no matter what.
Any other interests you want me to I want to add honor the work of the teachers for the distinguished.
Yeah, it just says criteria for maintaining
Yeah,
AP
but it's a district.
AP 5 will be an ongoing.
So that's /8, right, is what that
Yes.
really is, distinguished, because that's where you get, that's how you get there.
Recognizing that it's work on the part of the teachers.
Any other interests?
We say it's sustainable.
Sustainable, thank you, Brian. Okay,
How about value? Sorry.
Equitable.
Value all staff. I mean, I think we have the distinguished up there for the AP interest, but value in our staff. And we talk cost of deflections.
It's the last sentence on the
Massive interest as well this year, is to be able to give people a livable wage for the area.
okay, that's a great
So
one.
I think it matters.
Mhm.
And
Not even a little.
takes you back up to the top of the list.
Yep.
Or just a wage.
It takes you back up to the top of the list too, doesn't it? Retention.
It
Yeah.
does, but I was like, I just think it has to be specified.
Yeah.
for this year.
Okay, let's brainstorm solutions.
Should we take it off the E?
I think it looks right to me.
Yeah, we look at that, we can,
Okay, let's,
Nothing else to
And
do.
just,
Question mark.
People are gonna.
just, let's,
you're right.
not that we're gonna be able to,
You are.
I just want people to be aware that, CFO Wallace needs to leave at 6:45. So if there's any questions for him, I know we're scheduled to 7, but just if you have any questions specific for him, we need to ask him before that. So brainstorming, our group, when we talked, and again, we didn't vote or anything, just people talking pros and cons and looking, because once we talked about our interests, our group were interested in, so we'd like to put scenario 3 as a brainstorm,
3% with
which
the
is
full
cover
AP.
steps and lanes, cover all the medical increase of 9.8. The additional coaches in hard to fill, we've already agreed on, having the APE money pass through it completely, enhance medical benefits, and a 3% increase to all groups. And so, this is scenario 3 that we were interested in for a brainstorm.
Any other brainstorms?
We felt like we needed further information on the insurance, numbers. We need to know what the cost will be for, if it's an insurance stipend, if it's a stepping up to the driver plan, up to the, I can't remember which is called which, but up to the next rung, without knowing what those costs are. It's really hard to put the 1.183 million on there and say we don't know what the outcome of that 1.83 is and actually agree to or discuss what it is. So we feel like we need that Murray group feedback on what the options are with those funds and what the different cost allotments are.
We're not meeting until May 6th with the.
Yeah,
So is that next, is that Monday? Is that the 6th?
So
What is
we
that?
from Friday. Not this Friday.
May
it's next
2nd
Friday.
is the Monday.
Oh, May 2nd.
May 8th
Thank
is
you.
Sunday.
Okay.
So just, it is what it is. As far as that, they're running a lot of scenarios for all their districts and I guess we're behind too. So part of the agreement will say how that looks, would you agree that the dollars go towards medical and then I guess devils in the details, but there's, effectively it's gonna help. You could definitely, like if we're an individual right now, like Lisa said, that the driver, the buy-up plan costs you about $87 a month. It's going to be obviously more than that with the increase. So there'd be enough dollars to definitely cover that. You can do the buy-up plan for free.
Could you say that buy-up number again for me? What would the buy-up was?
Out of pocket is for just a single person, $87 a month that I pay.
But then you're gonna have that 10%, so you're almost at 100 there. So some of that money is gonna help cover that. But the thing, to me, when you get into benefits, and we're trying to cover a 9.8% increase, which we haven't seen anything above 5% in how many years? And it's almost double for the district to cover that, plus then that additional money's there, that can go towards that on top of that 9.8% that the district is covering. That is a sweet deal.
The additional money is the 1.18, correct? It's just got one little on me. Come
But
on.
that's a sweet deal that the state is giving.
Right.
Community that.
Right.
Within the discretion.
So we have 9.8% to cover the increase, and then we have almost 1.2 million left over.
And that's where I think we feel like we have to have the details on that 1.18
Thank you.
to understand, do we split it into a percentage on the base and part of it going towards insurance benefits? And that's a conversation we need to be able to have with members, and we can't tell them. I would not be able to, I can't have a conversation with members to say, believe me, 1.18 is gonna go to the benefits, which I know that it would, we'd agree to that. And they don't see a tangible in that, if they don't understand what that means, and if it's
It's roughly if everybody got the same amount to put toward insurance, it's $200 roughly a person to put toward insurance monthly.
That's what we talked about.
that's what it's like too.
So you could, if you stayed on the lower plan and you had a whole family, you could cut $200 off your whole family cost.
But if So then if the driver plan upping is $100 a month, so is that something like, okay, 600,000 could go to medical benefits, we're still honoring the intent of that language, that 600,000 could go into salaries? Is that how I'm understanding the 100, 200? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I think if, out of that discretionary, if we wanna make the decision that we're gonna use half the money that the state designated to medical for salaries, and I mean, that can be a brainstorm. We will be reporting to the state that we didn't use all the money we said to use for this, we did it for that. We'll be reporting that, and that, I don't know what the repercussions are.
If enough people do that, then the state's gonna say, obviously you don't need that much money.
Right.
And they're gonna cut us back $600,000. That's how that works.
I had a different interpretation from some of the conversations about the intent of understanding that too, was the intent of understanding those detail numbers is to know which areas do we need to intentionally fund, how do we need to fund it to get it competitive with the state plan, or when we're funding, I guess that's just different ones. I just think, for me, I need to see the breakdown, and that's
Well,
for
let's at
me,
least get
but let's see where other people are at.
then we'll have to, if that's the case, then we'll have to take next week off and come back in mid-May.
Yeah, I have, I mean, not that we can't do it without me, but I have a double header on Monday that was a reschedule for right now, this next Monday. So I'll be able to be here next week.
Brian, I have a
So it
question.
would be, I'm sorry.
No, you go.
So it would be all right to skip next Monday then until they gather the information and then come in?
I would be fine with that. I know that puts pressure on Brooke and contracts and everything, but
It's what it
It's
is.
a job.
I can just put pressure on
She has a
Brooke.
bad game that she works on.
3% increase for all groups is $862,000, is that correct?
Yeah.
So if you had another 862,000, it would be 6, it's that clean, it's that clean of a number? 862, if you had to double that, you could do 6%? You have it out at 6%?
See that right hand?
I do, and I see it goes down to 5%?
Right, that's where I stopped it, but yeah, for every 1%
Right.
for all groups is about 287.
Gotcha, so doubling it would, okay.
287 for a percent for all groups.
For all groups.
So I'm just imagining crystal balling the idea that the 9.8% increase gets covered using insurance money, intent of the state to be spent on insurance, and then half of the, I'm gonna round it up and call it 1.2 for enhanced medical benefits, and take 6 of it to give some additional enhancements to maybe buying up to the driver plan and or other things for people, and half of it going, and maybe 3% becomes 5%.
Okay, so do a brainstorm, she can write it down for her.
So it's scenarios, I'm just gonna do
It's
scenario
John,
3.
yes.
So just scenario John.
Yeah.
Scenario 3, 50% of the 1.2
Enhanced medical would be the short.
enhanced medical to salary schedule,
Right, which would be,
2%.
it's probably a little bit more, but yes, roughly. It's probably
Additional-
a generous version of 2%.
2%. Yep, that capture it?
And that would be 600,000 plus the 9.8%, so I'm guessing that would be more than half of the state's allocation for insurance. Would have met the legislative intent, and yet some stolen away to increase, because I'm trying to retain staff,
Yep.
nice people like myself, Jason, from going anywhere. And so, and that's a thing, right, because 8.5% inflation, March to March, and we need to start coming close. Just a thought, thank you.
Any other brainstorm?
Salary additional 2%. So the increase to all groups is 5%.
Yeah, that roughly, I did
Okay,
rough
so
down,
can
but
we put
yes.
that at the very back end of that scenario? Just to. Okay, other brainstorms or questions for Brian? He needs to go. Yeah. Okay, Brian, thanks.
Okay. That would put Brian's revenue covering
covers the 60% gap.
Thank you, Brian.
Thanks.
Thanks, Brian. Any other brainstorms? Or additional information? For follow-up on the notes, we definitely need to have the insurance piece. Any other follow-up pieces we need to research? Anyone?
I don't know about anybody else, but maybe a little bit more detail on the 861,000 that we're reserving for unknown or other needs.
Okay,
What could that potentially include? Curriculum was mentioned, but,
Sounds
or
like
do we have
just
extra
funds.
dollars that are still there that are to cover lost learning needs, that could cover curriculum,
That could also cover additional teachers we need next year if we don't have emergency level.
We brainstorm to do, just a brainstorm is, like we did last year, have an MOU of understanding that if there is a excess of funding that is coming, or if there's excess that is left, there's excess that is going to the reserve fund, and we're looking at drop days again, at a certain point in the school year. So MOU of that continuing to keep a responsible level of growth in those reserves as well. And I think that's always positive, because if it truly is excess, then we should be, I mean, livable wage is like 20% right now for people, but.
is there excess in public
But
education?
that's the thing, is there's not excess, it also sends it gives the expectation that then when we have the teacher, we don't hesitate, because we're not trying to grow that reserve fund, it's at 60%. We hire the teacher, we get the resources we want, we utilize those funds, so it still is positive all around to have that.
so what I heard her say, and what I was going to, I'm trying not to wait since I'm not gonna be here, but I do feel like the drop days are really, if it's one-time money, and I do have a concern, like I said earlier, about enrollment funding, I'm very concerned about the longevity and the sustainability in the district for that, as well as deferred maintenance and the knowing that instructional levy and possibly plant custodial levy need to be run together in March of this coming year. So I think doing something with the MOU about drop days for using part of the increase in funding from enrollment is for sure here for next year, of using that as drop days for folks versus into the careers.
Yeah, because
salary matrix.
I think it's important for people to, on this team, to recognize that the reason, well, one, we had an increase in, we have enrollment funding, but our fund balance could have gone up because Brian has been using ESSER dollars for things that we would normally use general fund for. ESSER dollars are going away, so we can't keep building on the salary schedule with those dollars because it's not sustainable, which is up here also, so that's
Right.
something we have to.
No, we get that. It would be nice to see what ESSER dollars are available. Cause I know like ESSER $3 are coming in that I don't believe we've used yet.
It all has to be tied back to COVID.
Yeah, but there's a lot of.
Drop days can definitely come from that for sure.
Right, there's a
We've
lot of
done
fixed
that.
technology,
Yep.
Yeah.
curriculum.
Yep.
I mean,
And
there's.
maintenance of Google Classroom for,
Yeah.
I think just for our sake and our members' sake, because our group totally understands that this inflation that we're experiencing is not the school district's fault. And the school
No, it's the
district
state funding.
doesn't get the money from the state to combat that. And so we need to understand, we need to help educate our members in that as well, which I think we do a pretty good job of. But with that said, it's also a reality, and to go back to our members, at a 2 or 3%, we need to have some more numbers in line as to, what is the 8, how much percent would that be added, if you add that in other, because that is a raise,
Yep.
to some people that you could give, and then it's about us educating, but, times are really tough right now, and we are losing staff members, and I just fear that if we don't have more concrete numbers and really do some educating with all of our staff, that I'm just afraid that it's gonna be not a good outcome. And I guess that's just where we're at, I guess, but I want everyone around the table to understand, we understand that it's,
Yeah.
if there's no money, there's no money, but I think we need to be very careful about being transparent and making sure that we show all the money.
Yeah.
And not that you're hiding anything, but
No,
that,
and Brian does have all those spreadsheets that he did for the board, showing where all the ESSER
Yeah,
funds
yeah.
were, and that he did that recently, so that's definitely available. The other piece I think that we should be really transparent about is if people want to do more of a percentage in the salary right now, that we might know, and Brian and I both alluded to it, is we might get to the precipice where then enrollment funding, if enrollment funding stayed, it would be more stable. It's just, you may have heard one thing, but I've heard something else, and I just want people to, I at least want it to be on record that we have a concern about that sustainability for enrollment funding, but we're gonna get to the precipice where ESSER funds are gone, the general fund balance is gone, and coming down to what's in the board policy, and the enrollment funding, if that was something happened, where you'll get to the point that then at that point, the board needs to make a decision. Are we gonna be able to keep our small reasonable class sizes and the funding, current staff we have? Because 87% of our budget staff, so at that point, there might have to be like a RIF if it was sustained, you know what I mean? So I just wanna find that sweet spot between
Yeah.
giving people a big enough raise, because we do have the money now, versus at least some long-term talking about, maybe it's important to do that right now because of the inflation and livable wage, but knowing that last time you guys didn't do a RIF before I got here, and you guys had a freeze, and that did not go over well, as we found out. So I at least just wanna be honest about the money and about that part.
yeah, and there's a fine line there
Mhm.
between, I mean, you know, what you can do and what you
Yeah.
can't do, and you gotta have some, that makes sense.
I do think as far as transparency goes on your part, that I think it's important for the teachers to understand that there was a big increase in what went into the salary schedule, but it all came through the AP loan. So,
Well,
because it's a flow through directly to you guys, there's only a 1% on the rest of the career ladder.
Right.
So, as an association,
And
if you
the AP
guys
itself
are.
is about 2.2%.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, if you
Right,
count that down overall.
right, if you
know.
spread it across the whole salary schedule. So
And that's a
I
discussion.
I do think that the association needs to be cognizant of that, because as we move forward, especially if enrollment funding goes away, the only raise that might be coming our way is through the AP dollars. And you guys are gonna have to look at and you're all getting it. So you're gonna have to look at your association members and be able to justify to them, we're all getting a pay increase because of this work we've done. And you're eventually gonna have the opportunity to do it, but you're gonna have to be okay with this. So that's the other part of this that I just want to
Yeah,
make sure that.
it's an ongoing battle, it's an ongoing conversation. I think we do a pretty good job of that. I just don't think we're ready. We just need some concrete numbers that we can share with them to show them, you know, moving forward. Because I think if we just stop now or agree to this right now and go to them without any hard evidence or hard facts.
No, I- and I totally
And we have some
understand.
brainstorms up here we have to
Yeah.
work through, so.
Yeah.
The other thing too is, remembering that Lakeland, I believe, in all of Idaho has the highest pay scale, right, salary. We pay far beyond what the state funds already, far beyond, right? So even though they look at the money, and I was with you guys, even with the AP rung, full pass-through, you earned it, you get it. We're the only one in the state that does that. You know, I get there's inflation, I get all this, but really, when you look at the budget numbers, I mean, what we get funded, all of us get funded, right, the district gets funded to pay is minuscule compared to what the district actually pays.
Which has
You
always
know?
been the challenge of explaining
Right.
to people is that our state doesn't fully fund education.
Right.
And that's where we're at, and so.
30% of our operating budget
And I mean,
comes out of
even,
taxpayers.
You know, the other obligations, just like, you know, we did the math adoption this year, we're trying to get back into the routine of doing that, you know, on an annual basis, where we can, but it's like everything else, that's not cheap anymore either. You know, so, you know, it costs you $700, $800, $900 million to do an adoption. You know, you just wiped out that 861 in one
in one
swoop.
shot. Wow.
Yeah,
And that's that's important, I think, to teachers as well, that they have updated materials to work with and that sort of things.
I'm like, that's the thing, this is, we're all balancing it's
Right.
all important, because then you sit there and go, that curriculum with no teacher is still just curriculum on a desk. I'm like, it's so hard. We had a first year teacher that came to me right after spring break, and he sat down and he's like, I did it, I spent my spring break doing my budget, and I was like, okay, good. He goes, well, I was coming out negative, but I think I've cut enough stuff now. He goes, if I'm right, I will have $12 a month for my son and I as excess money. I said, so you got 3 months to save up to get a new pair of pants. He's like, yes, I do. But that's at our state funded level at $40,500 with rent, and that is a single parent with a child, is $12 a month. And I'm like, we will never, I just go, at some point, we have to have them in the seat first. So it's just gonna be a hard year to bring all of those extremes, because it is all extreme, and reminding our constituents and stuff and everybody that we have to work together to continue to push. I think the state made huge gains this year. That 10% was not a lie in number. They put 10% more into educational funding, and that is a win. How we continue to roll that and continue, because what our constituents love, and that, I mean, the survey's right on the first page of our paper, and what they care about is staffing #1. That means they also believe in us and trust in us and will work with us to continue to hold the state accountable. So we just keep making those gains towards it, because I think we're going in positive directions with all the conflicting challenges that we have in front of us. But I think we just need more info right now. With more Pepsi. It's like I just need more caffeine. I still got a lamb, I gotta shave its legs. She almost broke my hand last week, but too good.
Okay, any other things you guys want?
So we're not meeting next Monday?
I'm looking at the calendar right now.
Sounds like we need the time to get your guys' information.
The insurance stuff too.
Yeah.
And it's,
So-
if we are taking next Monday off, if there's anything that people think of and have questions, are we okay to just email the whole team and say, hey, I thought about this, can someone bring it back to the team? Hey, I think if we have that time in between that we're still resonating on, how do we wanna communicate those questions? if we
It's
have
supposed to be an open session, so I think we should follow the same open session meeting laws. If you guys have anything that you want from the association side, any other brainstorm things, I think you guys email it to Jason. Jason's meeting with the admin team anyway. Jason can say, hey, these are some brainstorms, we can put them on the agenda for next time.
But if there's a request of information to bring
Oh,
for next
absolutely.
time, we can send that out and say,
Yeah.
hey, we have this question, please bring this. So
Yeah,
then
and then
we're
just,
not waiting.
I just would caution people, just write, do not reply to all, just like the board has to do for open meeting law.
Okay.
And so if you have a question, you can email it to everybody, but don't reply to all with brainstorming, cause it would violate that.
Yes.
So then it'd be safest if you guys just, I think, this is just my opinion, I'm not trying to tell people what to do, but if you guys have a question or research you want, I would just send it to Jason. Jason can send it to me. If our group has a thing, everybody can send it to me, and I will tell Jason, hey, my people want to, not my people, but our team
Yeah.
is interested in finding out this. Jason can do the same thing, and then we have it come
Cool.
prepared.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
wanted to know the route, because I didn't want to be like, I had a question midweek and then have
Yeah,
it.
no, I think that would be good.
Are we voting on a cancel next week? Is that a thing we do? Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
You'll send a push.
Well, I'm waiting right now,
Right,
because I
right, but
wanna
you'll
vote,
send a
I actually
pushback.
wanna vote on it, because I think that would be in the best interest of the team, it's not just because two people don't wanna have it, I think we need to, and I know, I asked him before he left, and he would definitely vote to be able to cancel it, so. All those in favor of canceling May 2nd, meeting, and then we'll come back together on Monday, May 9th, at 4:30, and I would entertain a motion if somebody wants to add to how late we could stay or how the word would go for that.
We were at delegate assembly, I feel like it's like, I vote to amend the motion to coming back May 9th and.
I would make a
extending it
motion
until 7.
to not meet until May 9th, and then meet 4:30 till 7.
Okay,
Second.
okay. All those in favor?
We have to stay to 7 if we get done early.
Yep.
Okay, that was
Like to
unanimous,
spend
thumbs
time
up.
together.
You owe us time, so you have to stay. You
Okay.
gotta earn that $0.
And I will notice that one of our norms, we are started on time, right at time, and are finishing a couple minutes early. So good job, team. Thank you, everyone.
Now we can stop.